Imagine this. No air conditioning, no fridge, no cold water from a tap, no shade except what nature gives you. Now imagine the sun is so brutal that the ground itself feels like it's on fire. Temperatures pushing past 45 degrees Celsius. Day after day, week after week, you'd think a heat wave like that would wipe people out in hours. But here's the strange part. Our ancestors didn't just survive this. Some of them thrived in it. For hundreds of thousands of years, humans lived through heat that would send most of us straight to a hospital bed today. So, how did they do it? Stick around, because the answer isn't just they got used to it. The real story involves body hacks, secret architecture, ancient survival tricks, and one surprising human ability that no other animal on Earth fully has. Let's go back. Way back. Here's something most people don't know. Humans are, biologically speaking, one of the best heat-surviving mammals on the planet. Not the strongest, not the fastest, but when it comes to raw heat endurance, we are elite. Why? 2 words, sweat glands. The average human has between 2 and 4 million sweat glands. Compare that to a dog, which barely sweats at all and has to pant to cool down. Or a lion, which can only handle short bursts of activity before it needs shade. Early humans in Africa evolved something almost no other large mammal has the ability to cool the entire body through sweat, combined with far less body hair than our ancestors. Think about what that means. While every other animal on the savannah had to rest during the hottest part of the day, early humans could keep moving, keep hunting, keep walking for miles under a blazing sun. Scientists actually have a theory for this. It's called the endurance running hypothesis. The idea is simple but wild. Early humans hunted certain animals not by being faster, but by outlasting them in the heat. A cheetah is faster than a human, but a cheetah overheats in minutes. A human? A human can keep going. We weren't the strongest predator. We were the one the heat couldn't stop. But biology alone isn't the full story. Because heat waves real, extreme, extended heat waves needed more than sweat to survive. They needed strategy. Here's a question. If you had no clock, no watch, no phone, how would you organize your entire day around survival? Ancient humans figured this out with terrifying precision. They built their whole lives around the sun's rhythm. Wake before sunrise, do the hardest work hunting, gathering, building in the cool hours of early morning. Then, as the heat rose toward midday, disappear. Not into hiding, into shelter. Caves, rock overhangs, dense tree cover, underground dugouts, anywhere the sun's direct assault couldn't reach. Archaeologists studying ancient sites in Africa and the Middle East have found something fascinating. Layers of ash and tool use that suggest communities were active at dawn and dusk, but strangely quiet in the punishing midday hours. They weren't lazy, they were smart enough to know something we sometimes forget in the modern world. You don't fight the heat, you move around it. And when night fell, that's when a second wave of activity happened. Cooler air, safer temperatures, a second work shift powered by moonlight and firelight. But shelter and scheduling could only do so much when a heat wave stretched on for weeks. Because there was one resource that mattered more than anything else. And without it, none of this would have worked at all. Water. It sounds obvious, but finding and protecting water during a heat wave was, quite literally, a matter of life and death, and ancient humans became master water detectives. They didn't just drink from rivers and lakes. They learned to read the land. Certain plants only grow near underground water. Certain animal tracks lead straight to hidden springs. Even the behavior of insects and birds at dawn could reveal a water source miles away. In some of the driest regions on Earth, places like the Kalahari Desert, indigenous groups developed techniques passed down for generations. Digging for underground water pockets, even extracting liquid from the guts of certain animals during emergencies. This wasn't guesswork. This was generational knowledge, passed from elder to child, story to story, survival skill to survival skill. Losing that knowledge could mean losing your life the very next heat wave. And that brings us to something even more important than water, something almost nobody talks about when discussing ancient survival. Here's the twist. The single greatest survival tool ancient humans had against extreme heat wasn't a technology. It wasn't fire. It wasn't shelter. It wasn't even water. It was each other. Heat waves are brutal alone. But in a group, everything changes. Groups could rotate work so no one overheated from prolonged exposure. Groups could share water sources fairly during scarcity, keeping the weakest members' children, the elderly, the sick, from being left behind. Groups could pool knowledge where the shade was best, which plants held moisture, which paths avoided direct sun. Cooperation was survival technology. In fact, some anthropologists argue this is one of the biggest reasons humans expanded across brutally hot regions of the planet, from the deserts of Africa to the scorching plains of Australia. While other species stayed confined to cooler, safer zones, we didn't just adapt physically, we adapted socially. And that social adaptation still lives inside us today. Every time a community checks on elderly neighbors during a heat wave, every time people share water or shelter during a crisis, we're doing something our ancestors perfected tens of thousands of years ago. Here's the part that should genuinely unsettle you. Heat waves today are becoming more frequent, longer, and more extreme than almost any period in recorded human history. But here's the irony. Modern humans, surrounded by air conditioning and convenience, have lost many of the survival instincts our ancestors mastered. We rely almost entirely on technology to survive heat. Technology that can fail during power outages at exactly the moments we need it most. Meanwhile, some of the oldest heat survival techniques, smart scheduling, natural shade, community support, water conservation, are quietly making a comeback in heat resilience research today. The ancient humans who survived punishing heat waves weren't lucky. They were prepared, they were connected, and they respected the sun instead of ignoring it. Maybe that's the real lesson hiding inside this ancient story. Survival was never just about the body. It was about knowledge, community, and knowing exactly when to fight the world around you and when to simply get out of its way. So next time a heat wave hits your city and you're reaching for the air conditioner remote, just remember, somewhere tens of thousands of years ago, your ancestors faced worse. And they didn't just survive. They passed down the knowledge that eventually became you. If this blew your mind, hit like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments what ancient survival skill do you think we've completely forgotten in the modern world. I read every single one. See you in the next video.